Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you're from. Welcome to our digital illustration lighting and texturing workshop. My name is Miki, and I'm the illustration community manager at Pixabay. Pixabay is a vibrant community of creatives sharing free, royalty-free stock media. This could be photos, illustrations, videos, or audio music. We provide connections between individual artists and give them exposure through our platforms. We also have fun events like contests, creative prompts, blogs, and workshops like this one. As the community manager, I handle the illustration community. After this workshop, you're free to join our community if you're not already, and you could contribute your work there. I would like to discuss a few reminders. First off, if you have any questions, you can use our Q&A box. Second, this workshop is being recorded just for everyone's knowledge. And finally, we will be using the software Affinity Designer too. Before we begin, I want to check if everybody has downloaded it. Please let us know in the chat if you have not installed Affinity Designer 2. Julia and Kim are part of the Pixabay team and they'll be supporting me today. And they'll be able to help us with the download link. I also ask you to download some files from the Google Drive. Were you able to download that as well? If not, Julia will send it in the chat box. For those who already have it, you don't have to download it again. I also ask you to import the brushes into Affinity Designer 2. I gave an instruction PDF as part of the Google Drive on how to do this, on how to import the brushes. Hopefully you were able to do that as well. So, great. Today, we will have a little lesson on the basics of lighting and shadows and the components of light. Then, we will be having a walkthrough tutorial on how to add lighting and shadows to an artwork, which is where we will be needing Affinity Designer 2. Finally, I will introduce what textures are and how to apply them. Shall we start? When you're first learning about illustration, you'll usually come across static shapes. They are the basic foundation of any art. Once you add more perspective, warp, and movement, it becomes more dynamic. It seems like there's more energy to it. The same concept is seen in static poses, where the characters seem a bit stiff and boring. When you're just starting out in drawing, it's most likely that you start off with static poses. They might have the right proportions, but they're just not dynamic. If we add more movement, we can feel the energy flowing through the body. The offset between the shoulders and other parts of the body have relation with each other. There's just more life and energy to it. The same concept can be applied to lighting. There are a lot of artworks that are flatly lit. There are some that have more dynamic energy to them. So we have static and dynamic, static and dynamic. To achieve dynamic light in an artwork, it is important to see the energy of each of the components of light. So, what are the components of light? First, we have direct light. This is the origin of light in a scene. It can be anything that emits light, such as the sun, the lamp. We have flashlights, light bulbs. Light sources are responsible for creating the initial illumination and determining the direction, intensity, and color of light. Next, we have ambient direct light. This refers to the overall diffuse light that fills a space and affects everything within it. Ambient light typically results from the scattering of light through a space. It helps to reduce the contrast between light and shadow, creating a more uniform illumination. So for example, if your direct light is the sun, your ambient direct could be the light from the sky. If we have light, we have specular highlights. These are the bright spots or glints that appear on the surfaces where the light source is directly reflected. The shape and size of the specular highlight depend on the surface texture and the light source's characteristics. So for example, a glossy plastic surface will have a small concentrated specular highlight, while a rougher surface will scatter the light more and produce a larger, softer highlight. Since we have highlights, we also have shadows. This will be the unlit side. Next, we have bounce indirect. This refers to the light that has been reflected off surfaces before reaching the subject. When a light source illuminates a surface, some of that light bounces off and spreads into the surrounding areas. This bounced light often softens shadows and fills in areas that are not directly exposed to the original light source. So for example, light bounces off walls, ceilings, and other surfaces in a room. In this instance, we have the table. Since we have bounced indirect light, we also have reflected light. Light is scattered in many directions, so this results in a more even and softer illumination without sharp highlights. Next, we have secondary reflections or indirect specular. These are secondary reflections where you can see reflections not from the light source, but from the room itself. These are more dim and more subtle. Lastly, we have the ambient occlusion. This refers to the gradual, less defined shadows. Let's look at some photographs from Pixabay. This chess piece has dynamic lighting because you can see clearly the specular and the shadow, and you're pretty aware of where the light source is coming from. Similar to this strawberry photo, we can also see where the light is coming from, where the specular and where the shadows are. This tells me a lot about the shape of the object. We're looking at a three-dimensional object here, because obviously we all know that a strawberry is three-dimensional, but we're only looking at a two-dimensional representation of it since it's a photo. However, I can still tell you information about the shape of the object because the light has its place. You understand seeing this in the real world. This can also be applied to illustrations. This illustration's lighting is dynamic. You can clearly see where the specular and the shadows are. Similar to this illustration. Great. Now that we know the different components of light, it's time to apply them in an illustration. For this activity, we'll be transforming this first photo into the next photo. To see the difference clearly, here it is. So this is the first photo. It is pretty flat, but the second illustration is more dynamic and has more energy to it. Okay, so starting from now, we'll be using our Affinity Designer. We'll do this we'll do this activity step by step. I'll demonstrate it first and then you can follow. So I would like everyone to open their Affinity Designer too. And open the worksheet file I asked you to download. So that's clicking on File on the upper left corner of your screen. So there's File, Open, and then find the worksheet. Again, that's File, Open, and then Worksheet. You should be able to see the illustration on the left side and the color palette on the right. Okay. Now that you've opened it, before we do anything else, I want you to open the layers of our cabin illustration. You can do this by clicking on the arrow on the left side of the cabin illustration. So you'll see a small arrow there. You can click that to look at all of the layers under the cabin illustration. Okay. Now we should be able to see all of the layers that we will be working on. So we have trunks, stones and grass, windows 1, window 1, 2, roof, porch, and so on and so forth. Okay, now we shall begin. Always remember that the first step in adding lighting and shadows to your illustration is to establish the light source. In this illustration, we have a couple of light sources. First, of course, we have the moon and the stars. And then we have the house lights coming out from the windows. So these are the other light sources. We will focus first on how to make the lights glow from the windows. What I would do is to add a curved S-line to the windows to mimic the glass effect. We can do this by using the vector brush tool. You can find the vector brush tool here on the left side. It's the brush, it's a tool that looks like a brush with a blue handle. So you can go ahead and click that. Now go to brushes, right beside the layers panel here on the right side. Click on brushes, choose on dry media, and then you can click on dense charcoal. You can go ahead and scroll down and you can find dense charcoal. Again, that's brushes, dry media, dense charcoal. And then let's go back to our layers. Find window 1. You will know which one is window 1 by clicking on the toggle visibility. On the right side of the layer, there's a circle for visibility. You can turn that on and off. So here is the toggle. So you can find out, oh, this is the window 1 that we're talking about. So we're going to focus on that first window. Okay, time to draw an S line. Like so. So now you can change the color of that line by clicking on the Move tool. So it's the one that looks like a cursor. And then you can click on that, choose on stroke. And then we have a color palette here on the right side. So we can go ahead and click on the color picker, drag that to number 1, and then click on the circle on the right side of the color picker to enter that color. Again, what did I do? So go ahead and click on the cursor, click on the stroke color, drag the color picker on the color that you want, and then click on that color to change the color. Now, we can also change this width of the line. Right now, it's looking a little bit thick. So we can change that to around 5 or 6, like that. And that's our S line. Okay, so what did I do again? I drew an S line, click on the cursor, change the color by dragging the color picker to the right color here in number 1, and then clicking on the color right beside the color picker. And then I change the width to 5 or 6. Great. So now we have this S line. I hope you're able to follow me. So now that we have the S line, we'd want that inside the window. Right now, it looks like it's outside the window. So what you'll do here is you'll drag the curved line inside the window 1 layer. Again, drag that inside the window 1 layer. You would know you chose the right layer if it turns blue. Again, drag that inside window 1. So window 1 layer should turn blue, and then drag it there. Now let's look at the layers within that layer. So we have 2 curved lines inside the window 1. We'd want the new yellow line below the existing curved line. So this one is the window railing. So we want the new line at the back of the window railing, like so. Were you able to follow that? So again, I made an S curve line. I changed the color, changed the width, dragged it inside window 1 layer, and put it in the back. So it should now look like this. We repeat this step for all of the windows we have. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 windows. So next we'll do window 2. How will we know it's window 2? We click on toggle visibility and we will know which one is window 2. So we'll do that again, step by step. We'll draw an S line. Put it inside window 2. Put it in the back. We should be done with window 2 now. Next, window 3. How will we know it's window 3? We click on toggle visibility again. So it's the one here at the bottom. We'll make just a short curve. And then put that inside window 3. Then put it in the back. Next, we have window 4. Put it inside. Put it at the back. Great. Next, we have window 5. How will we know it's window 5? We toggle on the toggle visibility. And draw an S again. Put it inside window 5. Put it in the back. Next, window 6. How will we know it's window 6? We click on toggle visibility. Draw an S line. Put it inside window 6. Put it in the back. Finally, we have window 7. Put it inside. Put it in the back. So now all your windows should have the S line. Now that we have lines on our window, it's time to make them glow. So our next step is to click on the Ellipse tool. It can be found on the bottom left part of the screen. So it's the one looking like a circle. Now let's drag that and make a circle in window 1. So this should look like this. It has a stroke right now because we used stroke a while ago. So yours could look like a yellow stroke and a blue circle. So we'll remove the stroke first. We can remove this by clicking on the circle with the red mark here on stroke. So we click on stroke, click on the circle with the red mark. That eliminates the stroke color. Now, let's change the color of the circle, the fill. So we click on fill instead, not the stroke. We click on fill and then drag the color picker to number 1 again. Enter that, and you should have a yellow circle. Again, well, how did I do that? I made a circle using the ellipse tool. Click on stroke, remove that using by clicking on the circle with the red mark. And then click on fill, dragging the color picker, and then entering that color. So we should now have a yellow circle. Now, to make it glow, we go to the effects panel, which is the one with the letter FX at the bottom of the layer panel. So we'll see FX here. At the layers panel, we'll see FX. So we click on FX, and then we click on Gaussian blur, which could be found at the last choices. So we click on Gaussian blur. Let's make the radius around 30. Like so, and the fill opacity at around 50. Like so. Again, we click on the effects panel here. Make sure that the circle is selected. So we click on ellipse and then click on effects. Go to Gaussian blur at the bottom. Change the radius to around 30 and the fill opacity at the bottom at around 50%. So we should now have a glowing circle. Let's just shape that into the window. So that's the first window done. You can now go ahead and copy paste this to all of your windows and adjust them accordingly. Copy paste that to all of your windows. Oh, you can copy paste by doing the regular Control C, Control V, is that in Windows? But you can in Mac, you can click Command C, Command V. Or you can just do the right click copy. Right click copy, right click paste. Should work as well. Showing the ellipse tool again. Okay, so we can make a circle by clicking on the ellipse tool here on the bottom left side, and then making a circle. At first, you'll have stroke on because of our previous settings. You can just click on stroke off by clicking on this circle with the red mark, and then changing the color of the fill by dragging the color picker and entering the color. Hope that helps. Okay. Now we should continue. I'll add another glow here on window 1. So I'll copy paste that, make a glow here as a sort of like a reflection of the light, but I'll change the fill opacity to around 100, like so. So it should look like that. It adds more depth to it. Make it a bit flatter. Great, now we're done with our windows. Were you able to follow that? Okay, now we move on to our roof. Now that we've established our light sources, it's now time to make the specular and shadow more apparent. So you look at the roof layer and then open that layer by clicking on the arrow on the left side. We focus first on roof number 1. So how will we know it's roof number 1 again? We click on the toggle visibility. So it's this layer. You can't see it very much because of the background. It has the same brown background, but it's there. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll get our brush tool, click on brushes, and then click on grain texture. You will find grain texture if you imported the brushes. If you didn't import the brushes, like what we've told in the instructions, the grain texture won't be there. So I hope you were able to import the brushes. Great, so we have grain texture, and then we'll click on brush 3. Go back to layers. Should now draw a simple line here, like so. Again, we can change the color of that by clicking on the cursor. Stroke, we can choose color 2, drag the color picker and entering color 2. So that will be our specular. We put that inside roof 1 layer. Again, roof 1 should turn into blue. We put that inside. So now roof 1 should look more apparent as it has specular highlights now. Okay, now let's move on to roof 2A. How will we know it's roof 2A? We click on the toggle visibility. Okay, now go to brushes, make a shadow like so. Change the color to, right now, let's change it to 3. And put that inside roof 2A. So now we're having a little bit of more dimension here. Again, we drew a line and then changed the color to 3 and placed it inside roof 2A. I use brush 3 from the brush's grain texture. No effects, just the grain texture, brush 3. Okay, now we'll move on to roof 2B. We'll add some shadows here. Change the color of that to color number 3. And put that inside roof 2B. You can adjust this by okay. So now it should look like this. Again, what I did was I drew a line here. Change the color to 3 and then dragged it inside roof 2B. Next, we have chimney number 1. We'll change our brush for now. We'll choose brush 2. Add a little bit of a line here, like so. And we can choose color 4 now to make it darker. Again, I use brush 2 and chose color 4. Now it's time to drag it inside Chimney 1. Now let's go to Chimney 2. Since Chimney 2 can be lit by the moon, we'll add specular highlights to it. So let's do the same step. We can still use brush 2. Add a line here. Change the color to stroke number 1, as this is the highlight color. Now let's drag that curved line to Chimney 2. So it should now look like this, the first part of our house. What size of brush am I using? So for the chimney one, I used around 67. 60 should be fine. Okay, now that the chimney is done, we'll move on to roof 3. It's the biggest roof. Okay, so this is roof 3. We'll know it if you click on the toggle visibility. We can go ahead and go back to our brush tool. Brushes, let's choose brush 3 again. Okay, so now we'll add specular highlights at the top of the roof by doing this, adding a line like so. Choosing color 5. Put it inside roof 3. Like that. Next, we do that again. So we add another line, same line. We'll do that again, but change the color to number 6, the green one. Because our ambient light is the sky, remember? So the sky is color green. So we'll add a little bit of a green highlight there. Put it inside, just a little bit of green. Should be fine. We can reduce the opacity to around 70. So there should be a slight hint of green. And then we add a shadow. So the shadow should be at the bottom. Let's change the color to color number 4, our darkest color. Let's change the size to around 100 to make it more diffused. Then add it to roof 3. So now you should have a little bit of a green highlight on top and a shadow at the bottom. Okay, now let's move on to roof number 4. How will we know it's roof number 4? Click on the toggle visibility again, and we'll find roof number 4. For roof number 4, since it's being lit by the moon, we'll add specular highlights again. So by clicking on our brush tool, let's choose brush 2. Let's add sort of a line following that roof shape. Then let's change the color to 1, since that is our highlight color. Put it inside roof 4. Great. Again, so I drew I drew a line following the shape of the roof number 4, changed the color to number 1, and placed it inside roof number 4 layer. Next, we move on to roof number 6. How will we know it's roof number 6? By clicking on the toggle visibility. Let's move on to our brush. Click on brush 3. Add a bit of a shadow here and here, the bottom. So let's change the colors of those ones to color 4, the darkest color for shadow. Let's put those inside roof 6. Now we have our last roof, roof number 7. Since it's just sort of a ledge, we don't really need to add anything to it. So we're done with our roof. Now we're going to do the sides. So we have 2 main sides, side 1 here, the big panel, and side 2 on the left side. So we'll focus first on side 2, the big one facing the moon. Let's go on our brush tool, choose brush 3. Make a line like this. Change the color to number 9. Let's put that inside side 2. Now let's focus on side 1. Let's add some shadows here. Let's change that color to number 4, our darkest color. Put that inside side 1. Let's add another one at the bottom. Put that inside side 1. Now we're done with the house. Hope you're able to follow that. Now we're going to focus on the trees. This should be a lot easier now that we know how to change color and put it inside the layer. So we'll focus on tree number 1. You'll find tree number 1 if you click on the toggle visibility here below. So this is tree number 1. Let's go ahead and click on our brush again. And then click on brush 3. Let's make a specular highlight by making a line like this. Changing the color of that to 7. Drag the color picker to 7. Put that inside tree number 1. So it should now have a little something on the top of it. So that is the specular highlight we have now. Now we add a little bit of shadow. So let's color that in and then change the color of that to our dark green, which is color 8. Let's make it a bit bigger, the width, so that it's more scattered. The dots are more scattered. Then put that inside tree number 1. So let's repeat that step, adding specular, highlights, and shadow to all of the trees. So we'll just repeat that step. Now we'll do it to tree 2B. So we'll add specular highlights and shadow. Let's change the specular highlight color to color 7. Oops. Like so. We'll do the same step to all of the trees. So now we'll do tree number 3. Add a highlight. That inside tree number 3. Add some shadow. Change that color to our darkest green, color 8. Like so. Again, we'll do that to all of the trees. So now we're on tree number 4. We'll add some highlights. Change the color of that to 7. Put that inside tree 4. And add some shadows. Change the color of that to our darkest green. Put it inside tree number 4. Finally, our last tree. Add some highlights. And some shadows. Change the color of the shadow to our darkest green. And then drag all of that to tree number 5. Great. Now we're done with our trees. I hope you were able to follow that. It's time to do the stones. We're almost done. So we're going to look at the stones and grass layer. We'll click on the arrow beside it to look at the layers. So we have 7 stones. This should be a lot easier because we're just gonna add some shadows to it. Just one line of shadow. So we'll go ahead and click on the brush tool, click on brushes, and then choose dry media. Everyone should have this, dry media. Then scroll down to variable square pastel. Again, that's brushes, dry media, variable square pastel. Okay. Now let's go back to our layers. Add that line, like so. And then let's change that color to our last color, number 10, our dark blue. And then put that inside stone 1. So it should look like this. Just add some shadow. Now we'll do the same step to all of our stones. Again, let's click on brush, add a stroke. Oops, that's too big. Add our stroke. And then put that inside stone 2. Same can be done to stone 3. And stone 4. And stone 5. Stone 6. Finally, our biggest stone, stone 7. So all of your stones should look like this. Hope you're able to follow that. Okay, now we'll focus on the trunks. So where are the trunks? These are actually trunks on the left side and the right side. So we'll add a little bit of highlight to that as well. So click on brushes, click on grain texture. Again, we'll click on brush 3. And then we'll add the slightest bit of color here. Sorry, let's add a bit of slightest color on the side. So we'll change the color of that to color 7 because that's our highlight color. Let's make the width a bit bigger. So around probably 120 would be okay. Put that inside trunks. Let's lower the opacity by clicking on opacity here and lowering it to around 70%. Like so. Again, I'll do the same thing to the other side. So just add one line of highlight. Put that inside trunks. Lower the opacity to 70. So now our illustration is almost done. We'll do some final touches. I hope you were able to follow. Now we'll do some extra steps, just 2 more steps and we're done with this. So first I want to make this smoke a little bit gradient. So we can do that by clicking on Fill. Under Fill, we have 3 tabs. So we have Swatches, Color, and Gradient. We'll go ahead and click on Gradient. And then clicking on the right circle here. And then changing the opacity of that to 0. Again, we click on Fill. We have 3 tabs here. We'll click on Gradient. Click on the circle on the right side, and then changing the opacity to 0. Now to change that, right now the gradient is it's vertical, it's horizontal, so it's left to right. We want it to look vertical. So we click on Gradient Tool here on the left side panel. We drag the left circle up and then the right circle down, like so. Again, how did I do that? We click on the Gradient Tool here. So we select the smoke first, and then click on the gradient line, the Gradient Tool here on the left side, and then just drag the lines. You can drag the lines. So now it has more depth to it. And finally, our last and final step, we add another ellipse. So create a big circle. So we'll make it not gradient. So we'll color it white. Remove the stroke. How do we remove the stroke again? We click on the circle with the red mark. So we make the fill color white and then remove the stroke here. So we should have a plain white circle. Make sure that the circle is at the back of the house and the trees, just on top of the background rectangle. So now what we'll do with this circle is we'll click on Effects again, click on Gaussian Blur, make it 100, the radius 100, and fill opacity to around 28, 30, around that number, like so. So the house should now have some sort of glow. Again, how did I do that? I created an ellipse and then click on Effects, click on Gaussian Blur, made the radius 100, made the fill opacity at the bottom around 28 or 30. Now, we should be done with our illustration. Okay, so the difference between stroke and fill is that, so for example, I'll create a circle, this one. So the fill is the color inside the circle. So we can change that to red. And then the stroke is the color outside the circle. So it's the stroke that's surrounding the circle. So for example, we'll make it green. So this is the difference between fill and stroke. The stroke is the line outside the circle. Fill is the color of the circle. Hope that helps. Great. Okay. Now that we're done with this illustration, let's go back to our Zoom PowerPoint. Okay. That ends our first activity. Hopefully you were able to follow the steps. If not, we'll give you the recorded version of this and you'll be able to pause it and then do the activity and then play it again and then pause it and play it. So it's a bit easier for you to follow. So now we will learn about textures. What are textures? This refers to the surface qualities or visual patterns that give depth and dimension to a design. They can be real or simulated and are used to add detail, interest, and realism to visual elements. Textures help create a sense of depth and dimensionality, making a 2D design appear more dynamic and engaging. They also prevent designs from looking flat or dull by introducing visual complexity. Some of the trending textures right now are halftones. This texture uses dots, varying either in size or in spacing. You can see it applied to this illustration. So those are halftones. Next, we have paper. Pretty trendy right now. So this could take in many forms like crumpled paper or watercolor paper, or in this case, we have Japanese paper with a lot of grains on it. So if you zoom on this illustration, you can see the paper texture on the clothes of the girl, or in the overall illustration, actually. Next, we have grain and noise. This is a visual distortion that looks like small discolored pixels and specks across your illustration. So you'll see it here as well. Okay. For our next activity, I will teach you how to apply textures to your illustration. It's just a couple of steps tutorial, pretty easy. So we can go ahead and go back to our Affinity Designer. I think everybody will be able to follow on this one. So just click on File, Open, click on the paper texture that I asked you to download as well in the Google Drive. Now that we have paper texture opened up, you can right-click and copy, and then paste it here. Paste. Again, I just copied the paper texture that we opened and then pasted on the cabin illustration. Now let's make it larger so that it fills the whole artboard, like so. Make it larger, that it fills the whole illustration, like so. So there are a couple of blending modes. We'll find the blending modes here in opacity. You'll see 100%, and then there is the word normal. We click on the word normal and then change it to multiply. So now you'll be able to see the textures on your illustration. There are actually a couple of blending modes available for us. So it would result to different outcomes. So we have color burn, linear burn, darker color, lighten screen, color dodge, lighter color. So it changes depending on the settings that you choose. So for now, I think multiply is the best blending mode that is best fit for our illustration. So you're done. This is the final illustration. Now it's time to export it. How will we export this illustration into a JPEG file, a PNG file? So what we'll do is we'll click on File again, click on Export. And then you can choose whatever file type you want. In this case, I usually go for PNG. Click on Export, change the name, and then save it. Again, how did I do that? Click on File, Export, choose the file type that you want, and then Export, and then click on Save. So that will give you a one finished artwork. Great. So now, I hope you're able to export your file. For our next activity, we actually have a take-home activity. Oh, Arvin is raising his hand. Okay, so for our next activity, I actually prepared three illustrations for you. These are all flat illustrations. So it is, I prepared this for you to add lighting and possibly texturing to these illustrations. Once you're done with your artwork, please export it like how I taught you a while ago and upload it on Pixabay. We'll be giving a link where you can upload it later. Actually, I briefly introduced what Pixabay is a while ago. It is a vibrant community of creatives sharing free, royalty-free stock media, but it is more than just a stock media website. It is centered around a community of creatives and artists. Here at Pixabay, we provide connections between individual artists through our forum page. People can also comment on your work and can follow you. We also support artists through exposure, like being featured on the website, and on social media. Users can also use this platform as their own portfolio. Pixabay also provides inspiration to users, not only through its abundant content, but also through its events like contests, creative prompts, blogs, and workshops like this one. So if you want to be part of this community, just head over to Pixabay, and you can easily make a free account and upload your first original artwork. As your first task, we would like you to post your finished artwork, the take-home activity, in the Pixabay forum post. Julia will give us the link to the forum post. Or tag us on social media at Pixabay, at Affinity by Serif, and use hashtag made with Pixabay, hashtag made in Affinity. Thank you for attending this workshop. I really hope you will continue this art form and create more amazing artwork using Affinity Designer too. See you on Pixabay and have a great day or evening.